All right, we are ready to roll for Class 6A in the ASN ranking show. I'm Carson Ward. It's been a it's been a long week for me, but this has been a lot of fun being able to do this week. I'm gonna round it out here with Class 6A and 7A, the two smallest classes by number of teams in the state, not by school enrollment, but by how many teams are in the class. 16 in Class 6A and Class 7A. Um, and we're just going to go ahead and get things going here. I don't think there'll be a whole lot of confusion with these rankings, but we're going to go ahead and talk about them anyway. We'll go ahead and get started here. Um, Starting off at number one, the consensus number one, the Greenwood Bulldogs. Um, they were one of the teams statewide that people thought might be the overall number one between every team in Arkansas, and they've pretty much proven that is the case this season. Um, there's a couple of teams from Class 7A you can probably throw in there, but Greenwood they played a lot of 7A teams in non-conference. I know they played Fort Smith, Northside, Bentonville West. I think they played Harbor as well. Um, Last week opened up conference play with Shiloh Christian, and the Saints gave them all they could handle. Um, can't really hold it against Shiloh Christian. They played a really tough Greenwood team, and they came out and they played pretty well, especially defensively, I thought. Um, and I think the final score there was 28-17. Tough loss for the Saints. Moving up from 5A to 6A hasn't been a super difficult adjustment so far for Shiloh, but they are still, um, and they're of course still there. You can see probably they're ranked in our top three, um, but they're a very talented team. They're still a contender for that Class 6A title, especially with the way that they played against Greenwood. Greenwood makes a couple more mistakes, and maybe Shiloh capitalizes on them and wins, but that was not the case Friday. Greenwood goes to 4-0. Number two, Benton. Um, they've bounced back really well from their opening loss to Bryant in the Salt Bowl. They haven't had a lot of fortune there the last few years, um, but they have wins over teams like Harding Academy, which is a really good 5A team. Um, and they just look like they are going to really, really have it rolling under Coach Brad Harris this season. Drew Davis is a fantastic quarterback. Of course, they've had to replace Braylon Russell. They've done that pretty well, it looks like, so far. And they are at our number two spot. Number three, Shiloh Christian. Um, we knew that the difference was going to be would Shiloh run the ball better than Greenwood threw the ball in that game um, on Friday, and ended up being number three, Shiloh Christian. Played a really tough game against Greenwood, as we talked about before. We knew the difference was going to be would Greenwood pass the ball better, or would Shiloh Christian run the ball better? We figured that would be the difference in the game. Greenwood came out and played a better game. They played a really good team in Shiloh Christian, and they showed they can win against the best that Class 6A has to offer. Um, and so we really are still holding Shiloh Christian in a high regard. Um, they can run the ball really well. That's been the case the past couple of years. Um, and they've got some really talented players. Um, but they the tough loss to Greenwood. I would assume that that's going to be the case for a lot of teams this season. And they remain at number three. Number four, Mountain Home under Coach Steve Airy. They're a team that has moved into our top four. Um, they've they've looked really good at the beginning of the season, and they've really proven to us that they're a top four team. Um, to me, it's Greenwood, Benton, Shiloh Christian are the three that I think are the top tier right now, and then there's everybody else. Um, but I think that there's a lot of good in Mountain Home right now. Um, and maybe they can keep pushing and emerge as a serious contender in the class to make it to Little Rock. Um, but I think it's going to be a tough climb to beat those top three. Number five, Fort Smith Southside. They moved down from Class 7A to Class 6A. Um, they're a tremendously talented team. They're a physical group. Um, they are adjusting to moving down to 6A really well. Um, Played some tough teams in non-conference, but we have them ranked at number five because we feel like they are going to perform pretty well in conference play. Number six, Marion, another team that played a tough non-conference schedule. Um, Conway is a tough game for them. Harding Academy we thought would be a really tough game for them. They ended up coming in playing really really well against Harding Academy and got that win, which really boosted their stock. They've got a tremendous ground game, and they've got an offense that I think can compete with most teams in the class. Um, so that's why we have Marion at number six. Number seven, Catholic. They are undefeated 4-0 right now, I believe. They've looked really good under their new head coach. After Coach Fogelman left and went to Malvern, Coach Cochran has done a good job leading that group. Jackson England is their quarterback, and he's been playing lights out. Um, and that's a team that really, since they've moved down from Class 7A, have really been doing well. Number eight, Lake Hamilton. Coach Tommy Gillerin has really rallied that team after they started off struggling. Got a win over Little Rock Southwest in non-conference play. Um, I believe their one loss was in their first game of the season. I'm going to have to check on that here in a second, but um, really talented Lake Hamilton team. Coach Gillerin is one of the best coaches in the state. He's going to have them up in that contender area in no time. All right, we'll get into the games this week and our picks. Going to start off with what should be a really good one. Shiloh Christian, they're 2-2, but they're still a really good ball club. Played a tough non-conference schedule. Um, Mountain Home's 4-0. That's why we have them ranked in our top four. Um, I think that Shiloh Christian gets the victory in this game. It's going to be a close game. It's at Mountain Home. People are going to be watching this game around the state, no matter the classification, for sure. Um, it's back-to-back tough games for Shiloh Christian. That might affect them a little bit, but I think that Shiloh has proven throughout their school's history that they can hang with the best, and I think they're going to get the victory this week in a close game. Catholic versus West Memphis. Catholic, I think it's pretty easy to say. After West Memphis last week lost to Sheridan, I believe the score was 62-14. Tough loss for West Memphis. Catholic's going to get the win big on the road in this one. Russellville versus Greenwood. Russellville has started their season pretty well. I know they got a win against Greenbrier in non-conference. That's a really good win for that program. Coach Wheeler has really improved that team pretty much every year since he's gotten there, or at least stayed on the same trajectory. I'm going to pick Greenwood to get the victory. I think that's a pretty simple explanation. They're the number one team in the class. They're undefeated. Their point spread is just, you know, ridiculous. So Greenwood will roll in that game. Benton versus Sylvan Hills. This is another game. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Sylvan Hills, they have athletes every year, but they're struggling to put it all together. Benton wins big in this one and moves to 4-1. Sheridan and Jonesboro. This is an interesting one. Sheridan, when they're hot, they're hot, um, and when they're not, they really struggle. Uh, Whenever they feel like they can get it going, they can really put points up on the board, as evidenced in their game against West Memphis and their game against Whitehall. But then in games, like Rogers and like against Lakeside, they didn't have a terrible offensive performance like they did against Rogers. Um, but they've still got to put it together. I think they're going to look better every week under Coach Kelly. He has a complicated offense that they have to learn, and he demands perfection from his team. Um, I think Sheridan gets the win really, really close this week. Um, I think it's going to be a shootout, but I think that Sheridan gets the victory. Very, very close game this week against 0-4 Jonesboro in Jonesboro. Marion versus El Dorado. I'm going to pick Marion to win this game. I think their offense is just too talented for El Dorado. I think the Patriots will pull it out. El Dorado's a good team, don't get me wrong. It's at El Dorado. I think that will affect it a little bit, but Marion, I think, gets the victory in this one. Siloam Springs and Van Buren. Siloam Springs 2-2, Van Buren 1-3. I'm going to pick Van Buren to get the victory in this game because it's at Van Buren. Um, going to be a close game, I think. Van Buren has shown that they can play explosive offense. I think they're going to show that again in this game and get the victory. Fort Smith Southside versus Lake Hamilton. It's at Lake Hamilton. Going to be a long drive for Fort Smith Southside. Nevertheless, Lake Hamilton's a team. They run the ball really well. That's what they want to do. That's what Coach Gilleran's wing tee offense is about. Southside is a program that, of course, is adjusting from moving down from 7A to 6A. I think Lake Hamilton gets the win in this game. An upset based on our rankings. I think the game being at Lake Hamilton is going to help them. I think this will be a one-score game at the end, and Lake Hamilton will pull it out in a close game. That's going to do it for Class 6A this week. Our picks and rankings. A lot of really exciting football, especially you look at that Shiloh and Mountain Home game, Fort Smith Southside versus Lake Hamilton. We went through them all. So we are really excited to see what happens in Class 6A this week. Don't forget, subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Hit the like button if you're enjoying these videos or if you're enjoying anything from ASN. We want to know how you feel, so let us know in the comments if you're enjoying the show. And go ahead and follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram. We post stuff almost every day on those platforms. So go ahead, give us a follow over there if you want more Arkansas high school sports content or more Arkansas Razorbacks content. We have you covered in both spaces. But for now, I'm Carson Ward, and until we get to Class 7A, signing off.